Hello again and welcome to Pearl Magazine. It's been more than 3 months since COVID-19 changed our way of life. With businesses crippled and many closing, Hong Kong's unemployment rate is at a 9-year high.
That's right, Mel. And with pay cuts and no pay leave forced upon many employees these days, Zella Chin reports on how some Hong Kongers are surviving without income and whether government help is on the way.
It's overcast on this Tuesday morning in Ma On Shan. This freelance drama teacher strolls through her housing estate.
My name is Doris Yu. I'm a freelance actress and also a drama educator, which basically served in schools. Because of the pandemic, all the schools closed and all the classes cancelled. I got no jobs now and no income. Basically a full-time mom right now. I will go shop for groceries and teaching my kids their homeworks and the academic needs.
She buys groceries at the indoor wet market.
Oh God.
Chicken wings, pork chops, and vegetables for dinner.
Before the pandemic, yeah, it's gonna be a domestic helper to come out to shop, but now I have nothing to do.
Doris used to spend 6 days a week teaching drama to primary and secondary school students. She taught at 9 different local schools.
5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Today, Doris practices drama techniques with her 10-year-old and 12-year-old sons.
I like to teach drama because I love to teach kids, and it's funny because the classes is quite interesting and my students enjoy my classes too. So that's why their enjoyment actually will become my motivation to keep on working in this field.
When the Education Bureau suspended schools in January because of the novel coronavirus pandemic, extracurricular activities were also suspended.
No matter the drama classes, the sports class, the tutorial classes, all classes will be cancelled. I mean the extracurricular activities. But by that time, we never imagined the suspension will be up till now.
Schools will start reopening on May 27th, but Doris's schools won't be offering extracurricular classes. Doris used to make about $30,000 a month from teaching. She had no income since February, and in March she got more bad news.
The situation is my husband lost his job last month. We try our best to use our saving to keep on living for our meals and everything. And yeah, I try to eat less. So that's how I try to survive in this period. So
her husband used to be a product engineer in mainland China. Expenses for the family of 4 include food, mortgage, car park fees, utilities, and a domestic helper, totaling about $13,000 a month.
Right now, I think my saving would be finished in 1 or 2 months. So I am worrying about 2 months later, how could I pay for my daily expenses or the mortgage? Will I be homeless, or will my husband be possible to get a job very soon or not?
Doris hopes to qualify for a relief grant under the Anti-Epidemic Fund for school instructors of interest classes. It's $7,500.
The fact is, as a Hong Konger, you know that $7,500 won't be able to survive. Maybe able for an individual, but not as a family. So that's how. And that's how difficult it is for me.
She doesn't expect to make any money from teaching until the new academic year starts in September. But she is reluctant to get a part-time job.
So when the school resumes, I need to be responsible for my schools also. I need to go for meetings, maybe for my future productions or future classes, work with the schools or something like this. But if I take up some part-time jobs regularly, it might be difficult.
While it's difficult to get by without a salary, the job search is taking longer than usual. For expats who can't find work, they may have to leave Hong Kong.
Over in Lai Chi Kok, Richard Cohen, a Brit, has lived in Hong Kong for 15 years.
Where my partner is, this is where my friends are, this is where my professional circle is.
Richard is a software developer with more than 20 years of experience. He used to work at a tech startup. When the Hong Kong and China businesses merged in December, he was let go. But as Richard started looking for a job, the pandemic changed everything. He is looking for a software developer role that pays $50,000 a month.
I've had a few things which I thought were fairly good prospects, which didn't come off. Unfortunately, in the current environment, it's not that there's no hiring going on, because there certainly is, but everything is just a bit more sluggish, a bit harder to get any progress on. But she kind of gets annoyed with people.
He saves money by not going out as frequently as he used to.
I haven't been going out very much because a lot of the things which I would do have been cancelled, the events I'd go to and so on. So I'm living not frugally, but I'm not sort of splashing out anything. I'm not buying any clothes, electronics, anything but food and.
But he has a few health issues that have cropped up lately, which adds to his stress.
I am hopefully going to have some minor surgery sometime in the next couple of months, which is sort of the first step along the treatment path.
And Richard is searching for a new flat. He needs to move out of this 450 square foot one by the end of May.
Landlords tend to ask for proof of income, and at the moment I don't have any income. I've really got to try and find some work before I can find a new flat, but finding a new flat is a hard deadline because I'm going to get kicked out of here.
If he can't find a job in Hong Kong, he will have to start looking in other cities.
My partner doesn't want to leave. Her family are here, she's Hong Kong born and bred, she's local. So there will be potentially at some point a very hard decision to make of, well, if I really can't find anything here, can I stay? And if I can't stay and she won't leave, then, who knows where that goes.
Bhakti Baurali also had some financial worries. She immigrated from Nepal in 1997 for a better life for her family. She's lived in Lei Yun Moon with her children for almost 20 years. Shortly after she arrived in Hong Kong, Bhakti got a job as a baker in a factory and rose up the ranks to become the head chef.
In these 23 years, I used to think even though I'm a Nepali, my boss has taught me many things. I'm not educated in the bakery field. I don't have a high level of education. I can only read the order and prepare it. I process very quickly. Because of this, my boss liked me.
As a single mother, Bhakti was able to raise her son and daughter from her income as a baker. But the pandemic aggravated an already tense relationship she had with her boss. At the beginning of the year, her boss wanted her to take 35 days of no-pay leave and cut her pay by 10%.
At that time, I felt bad. I came home and shared it with my daughter. She told me that you work for a very long time in this factory. He might be thinking of dismissing you from your job.
Bhakti said she was the only employee asked to take these cuts, and she felt she was being singled out.
Please take a seat here.
So the mother and daughter visited a social worker with the Catholic Pastoral Center for Workers. It specializes in labor issues.
For her, she has the right to refuse the salary deductions and refuse the no-pay leave arrangements outside by the company, because according to the labor ordinance, this kind of change of contract term need to be mutually agreed between the employees and the employers.
Zhang advised Bhakti to negotiate the terms of her employment with her boss. If he forced her to take a 10% pay cut and no pay leave without her consent, then this would be illegal. And Zhang also advised Bhakti not to resign voluntarily, because then she wouldn't get her long service payment. In the end, her boss used the pandemic as a reason to fire Bhakti on March 31st. He paid her severance, outstanding leave, and long service payment. Altogether, almost $400,000. She is checking if anything was taken out of her MPF.
I'm happy. I'm at home with my children. I'm very happy. I'm planning to rest for a while, then go to Nepal after the COVID-19 situation settles down. After that, I will think about working again or teaching baking.
Well, Bhakti's story has a happy ending. Not many people are so lucky as a pandemic grinds on. Zhang has had twice as many labor cases. These are related to termination of contracts, pay cuts, and no-pay leave. For those having financial difficulties, he advises,
you may get the support from some charitable organizations like community chest or social welfare department for support. And also for social welfare department, they have the integrated family service center. They may give you some opinions on how to overcome the financial situation.
Zhang says a pandemic is one of the worst crises he's experienced in his career, and the job loss hurts the underprivileged a lot more than others in society.
Because what we see is that for the grassroots labor, they, because of their skill levels and education level, they are more vulnerable in these situations.
After the break, we take a first-hand look at what quarantine life is like.
Stay with us.
Welcome back. As the coronavirus pandemic spread across the globe during the first quarter of this year, those working or holidaying outside of Hong Kong were hit with the news that from March 19th, they would have to undergo a mandatory 14-day quarantine upon arriving in Hong Kong.
That's right. This happened after a surge in COVID-19 cases, 70% of which the government says were imported. The quarantine is set to stay in place until June 18th. Here's a look at what it was like to be in quarantine. I'm in Buenos Aires during this whole coronavirus pandemic, which does not make visiting the city very fun because all the national museums and tours and a lot of shops and restaurants are shut. So you can see the airport is pretty empty. There is some social distancing, but not a lot. Some people are still swooshing very close to each other, so the 1 meter rule isn't being followed. I am very glad to be heading back to Hong Kong. And yeah, looking forward to it. Even the 14-day quarantine, I don't mind. Just want to get back. It was a relief to get on the plane. "19 hours later, we stopped in Doha, where other connecting passengers boarded, armed from head to toe against the virus. Another 8 hours and it was touchdown Hong Kong. This secondary student was heading back home from the UK. So you're coming back because you think it's safer here? When do you plan to go back? Do you plan to go back?
I'm not sure.
So we're all waiting to have wristbands put on us here. So we have to fill out 2 forms, and they've checked them once already.
Maybe here?
Okay, yeah, there is fine. So 14 days to stay home?
Yeah. Okay, we'll take shower.
Okay.
Yeah, water is for food.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Got my bracelet.
After activate the apps, you can then get back to your home, scan the QR code of your hand, and then it's okay. Just
Okay.
activate the app.
Once I got home, I downloaded the app, but had a few issues. Oh, okay, it matches my bracelet, but again, it's not useful to me because it's in Chinese. So I've got to track my bracelet for 60 seconds around the apartment to make sure they know that I'm staying in the flat. Okay, so that's it. I have tracked myself around the apartment, and let's see how this works. This is the guidebook I received the other day when I arrived at the airport. And basically it is the home quarantine guide, and gives you guidelines for what you need to do while you're in quarantine, whether you're alone or you're living with your family who, say, have not left Hong Kong. So ideally they want you to stay in a separate room. It also has a health monitoring checklist. Despite terrible jet lag and boredom, I kept a daily routine. Made my bed every morning, even if it was at 4 a.m., tidied the flat, cooked breakfast, which looked more like dinner, workout, TV, temperature, video calls, food, TV, calls. Basically, lather, rinse, repeat. Day 2 of quarantine, it is pretty boring being inside, especially when the weather outside is so beautiful. As you can see, it's bad. The only things that really broke up the monotony of this daily schedule were the deliveries. My friend Renata is on her way up, bringing the selfie stick I asked for, which is very kind of her because my arm is just not long enough. So this is very exciting. This is like the highlight of my day. Like, oh, I hear the elevator. It is so nice to like actually see someone face to face. Almost face to face. Yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you so much. See how happy I am. So easy to please me. For others, quarantine wasn't so easy. Journalist Peter Caveo spent a week in a government facility after coming into contact with someone who tested positive.
I got a test myself, and I tested negative, but I still got a call saying, hey, you're in close contact. We have to put you in quarantine. And I begged. I was like, okay, that's fine. I've taken a test. Can I just do it at home?
That is my bed. That's where I'm gonna sleep.
I was stuck in this little room, and people told me, oh, you can do this or push-ups and this and that, but it's a concrete floor and whatever. It's not like it was a comfortable place to do whatever I wanted to do. So it became just bored, like dragging, waiting for the time. I did have internet, but it didn't connect to my computer, only through my phone, so I had to tether them if I needed to. I would get up a little before 8 because we were fed at 8:30. Someone would come knock on your door and they would leave food outside. I thought it was needless because I could have done it at my home. It wasn't so bad, but I just didn't think it was necessary to take me out of my surroundings because, you know, like, I think I'm a responsible citizen.
Keep it real, guys.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Kuratallin Zaidi says being in quarantine can lead to depression. She says one way to cope is to create a daily routine.
So having a structure and routine, you know, doing your exercise, having, you know, work spaced out, having your regular meals, having a set bedtime, all the things, and continuing to reach out to your social support network.
Head teacher Joanne Townsend spent her 14-day quarantine at home with her husband after visiting her kids in the UK. Since he didn't travel with her, she stayed in a separate room and only spoke to him through the door or through their phone.
I was saying to him, you know, the last time we held hands was March the 17th. The last time I had a hug with him was March the 17th. I found in the past 2 weeks, I've kind of been up and down emotionally. So there have been days where I would say maybe maximum 2, where I just wanted to stay in bed and just not get out because I felt I don't want to face the world. Every day I would make the bed, I would either air it or make it. And then I would just kind of text for breakfast, have my breakfast, wash my breakfast dishes, leave my breakfast dishes out to be collected.
She had to make do with video calls to her husband and two school-age daughters living in the UK. They had a weekly family quiz night.
We'll get up like I'm going out for dinner. I'll have a little gin and tonic and we'll play the quiz.
For young children, the pandemic can create a scary environment.
It is about preparing, preempting, and answering the questions for the children age-appropriate manner, and then explaining it to them, and again, preparing yourself.
Every time we saw someone wear a mask, we would explain to them, whether it was on TV or we're at the supermarket, and we would show them that if people are wearing masks, you need to wear them too. Once they understood that this is part of the new normal, then getting on an airplane and flying 14 hours to get back to Hong Kong, they were actually compliant in wearing the mask for the entire flight.
Derek, a startup investor who was on holiday in the US, flew back with his wife and 3 kids. He did some research to prepare for the quarantine.
We brought food and drinks and snacks for the kids. We brought the iPad fully charged up with lots of entertainment loaded up to wait out this 8 hours. It took 11 hours. So this is basically your electronic leash, which is then paired to a smart mobile app.
How did you plan for 14 days of quarantine with 3 children under the age of 3?
During this period of time, what do I want to personally gain from this? I want my family, my girls, to be potty trained. I want them to get fit. We're going to do exercises together. They would wake up in the morning, we'd have our breakfast together. They would have their alone time where they could play and interact with each other. And then we had online learning with the school. In the afternoon, by that time, they had all of this pent-up energy, so then we'd have to get them out and do some exercise. So we'd basically run around the kitchen.
He began their quarantine prep in the US and continued it in Hong Kong.
I'd go into my storage room and find different things that were heavy that they could lift and get them to exert more energy and expend more energy. So if you bleed them out, they'll be much less fidgety.
Derek and his son both celebrated their birthdays in quarantine. For the final evening, Derek planned a camping trip in the living room with the twins.
We set up this tent, and then I took out my sleeping bags and let them choose one. I put on a campfire sleep screen. So we just had this flickering light with the sound of the campfire right next to our tent, and you could hear the crickets chirping in the background, and that whole experience was just so memorable for them.
Derek said it brought him closer to his family, and Joanne said it made her appreciate her relationship with her family, co-workers, and Hong Kong. One thing everyone agreed on was that it was necessary for the safety of all. That's our show for this week. Next week, we take a look at how technology is evolving even faster during this pandemic, where everyone must rely on tech at some point.
And how animals are taken care of without the presence of visitors at one of Hong Kong's most iconic theme parks. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.